and chewing some pure cinnamon gum. And maybe some pure chocolate mint gum as well. But yeah, so Japan, Nippon or Nihon, and formerly Nippon Goku or Nihon Goku, is an island country in East Asia. It is the Northwest Pacific Ocean. In the Northwest Pacific Ocean, and is bordered on the west by the Sea of Japan, extending from the Sea of Okhotsk in the north toward the East China Sea, Philippine Sea, and Taiwan in the south. Japan is part of the Ring of Fire. I turned my gain down on my microphone, so it's going to be less loud, but people were complaining about the gain being too high, so let me know how it is here. But Japan is part of the Ring of Fire and spans an archipelago of 14,125 islands. Wow, I had no idea it was that many, with the 5 main islands being Hokkaido, Honshu, the mainland, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Okinawa. Tokyo is the nation's capital and largest city, followed by Yokohama, Osaka, Nagoya, Sapporo, Fukuoka, Kobe, and Kyoto. Japan has over 125 million inhabitants and is the 11th most populous country in the world, as well as one of the most densely populated. About 3/4 of the country's terrain is mountainous, concentrating its highly urbanized population on narrow coastal plains. Japan is divided into 47 administrative prefectures and 8 traditional regions. The Greater Tokyo area is the most populous metropolitan area in the world. Japan has the world's highest life expectancy, though it is experiencing a population decline due to a very low birth rate. I didn't know it had the world's highest life expectancy. That's really interesting. I wonder how they got that. Japan has been inhabited since the Upper Paleolithic period, 30,000 BC, between the 4th and 9th centuries. The kingdoms of Japan became unified under an emperor and the imperial court based in Heian-kyo. Beginning in the 12th century, political power was held by a series of military dictators, shogun, and feudal lords, daimyo, and enforced by a class of warrior nobility, samurai. By the way, this video that I'm doing right now was a request from a viewer, and I think the viewer wanted me to eat Japanese food, but the Japanese food restaurant that is near here is closed for the season, and I live in a rural community where some restaurants are only open during the warmer seasons. So I don't know how to make Japanese food, so I think I'm chewing lots to do, sorry. After a century-long period of civil war, the country was reunified in 1603 under the Tokugawa shogunate, which enacted an isolationist foreign policy. In 1854, a United States fleet forced Japan to open trade to the west, which led to the end of the shogunate and restoration of imperial power in 1868. In the Meiji period, rise in militarism and overseas colonization, Japan invaded China in 1937 and entered World War II as an Axis power in 1941. After suffering defeat in the Pacific War and 2 atomic bombings, Japan surrendered in 1945 and came under a 7-year Allied occupation, during which it adopted a new constitution. Under the 1947 Constitution, Japan has maintained a unitary parliamentary constitutional monarchy. That's a lot of big words. With a bicameral legislature. The national diet. Japan is a developed country and a great power, with one of the largest economies by nominal GDP. Japan has renounced its right to declare war, though it maintains a self-defense force that ranks as one of the world's strongest militaries. A global leader in the automotive, robotics, and electronics industries, the country has made significant contributions to science and technology and is one of the world's largest exporters and importers. It is part of multiple major international and intergovernmental institutions. Japan is considered a cultural superpower. And as the culture of Japan is well known around the world, including its art, cuisine, film, music, and popular culture, which encompasses prominent manga, anime, and video game industries. Do you guys like anime? The cartoons, Japanese cartoons. I like Dragon Ball Z. Etymology. The name for Japan in Japanese is written using the kanji that is pronounced Nippon or Nihon before, and is showing 2 Japanese characters, was adopted in the 8th century. The country known in China as well changed in Japan around 757 too. Then a couple more characters, I think they're Japanese, and in Japan by the etonym Yamato. Nippon, the original Sino-Japanese reading of the characters, is favored for official uses, including on Japanese banknotes and postage stamps. Nihon is typically used in everyday speech and reflects shifts in Japanese phonology during the Edo period. The characters, and it shows 2 characters here, sun origin, which is the source of the popular Western epithet, land of the rising sun. The name Japan is based on Chinese pronunciations, a couple characters there, and was introduced to European languages through early trade. In the 13th century, Marco Polo recorded the early Mandarin or Wu Chinese pronunciation of the characters as Japangu. The Old Malay name for Japan, Japang or Japan, was borrowed from a southern coastal Chinese dialect and encountered by Portuguese traders in Southeast Asia, who brought the word to Europe in the early 16th century. The first version of the name in English appears in a book published in 1577, which spelled the name as Gayapan. In translation of a 1565 Portuguese letter. History. Prehistoric to classical history. A Paleolithic culture from around 30,000 BC constitutes the first known habitation of the islands of Japan. This was followed from around 14,500 BC, the start of the Jomon period, by a Mesolithic to Neolithic semi-sedentary hunter-gatherer culture characterized by pit dwelling and rudimentary agriculture. Clay vessels from the period are among the oldest surviving examples of pottery. From around 700 BC, the Japanese-speaking Yayoi people began to enter the archipelago from the Korean peninsula, intermingling with the Jomon. The Yayoi period saw the introduction of practices including wet rice farming, a new style of pottery, and metallurgy from China and Korea. According to legend, Emperor Jimmu, grandson of Amaterasu, founded a kingdom in central Japan 660 BC, beginning a continuous imperial line. Japan first appears in written history in the Chinese Book of Han, completed in 111 AD. Excuse me, I'm just gonna spit out my gum here. And put a new piece in. Pure brand chocolate mint. Very good. Buddhism was introduced to Japan from Beiji, a Korean kingdom, in 552, but the development of Japanese Buddhism was primarily influenced by China. Despite early resistance, Buddhism was promoted by the ruling class, including figures like Prince Shotoku, and gained widespread acceptance beginning in the Asuka period, 592 to 710. In 645, the government led by Prince Naka no O and Fujiwara no Kamatari devised and implemented a far-reaching Taika reforms. The reform began with land reform based on Confucian ideas and philosophies from China. They nationalized all land in Japan to be distributed equally among cultivators and ordered the compilation of a household registry as the basis of a new system of taxation. The true aim of the reforms was to bring about greater centralization and to enhance the power of the imperial court, which was also based on the governmental structure of China. Envoys and students were dispatched to China to learn about Chinese writings, politics, art, and religion. The Jinshin War of 672, a bloody conflict between Prince Oama and his nephew Prince Otomo, became a major catalyst for further administrative reforms. These reforms culminated with the promulgation of the Taiho Code, which consolidated existing statutes and established the structure of the central and subordinate local governments. These legal reforms created the Ritsuryo state and a system of Chinese-style centralized government that remained in place for half a millennium. The Nara period, 710 to 784, marked the emergence of a Japanese state centered in the imperial court, Kyo, modern Nara. The period is characterized by the appearance of a nascent literary culture with the completion of Kojiki 712, Nihon Shoki 720, as well as the development of Buddhist-inspired artwork and architecture. A smallpox epidemic in 735 to 737 is believed to have killed as much as 1/3 of Japan's population. Well, in 784, Emperor Kanmu moved the capital, settling on Heian-kyo, modern-day Kyoto, in 794. This marked the beginning of the Heian period, 794 to 1185, during which a distinctly indigenous Japanese culture emerged. Murasaki Shikubu's The Tale of the Genji and the lyrics of Japan's national anthem, Kamigeyo, were written during this time. Feudal Era. Japan's feudal era was characterized by the emergence and dominance of a ruling class of warriors, the samurai. In 1185, following the defeat of Taira clan and the Minamoto clan of the Genpei War, samurai Minamoto no Yoritomo established a military government at Kamakura. After Yoritomo's death, the Hojo clan came to power as regents of the shogun. The Zen school of Buddhism was introduced from China in the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333, and became popular among the samurai class. The Kamakura shogunate repelled Mongol invasions in 1274 and 1281. But was eventually overthrown by Emperor Go-Daigo. Go-Daigo was defeated by Ashikaga and Kakeuji in 1336, beginning the Muromachi period, 1336 to 1573. The succeeding Ashikaga shogunate failed to control the feudal warlords, daimyo, and civil war began in 1467, opening the century-long Sengoku period, warring states. During the 16th century, Portuguese traders and Jesuit missionaries reached Japan for the first time, initiating direct commercial and cultural exchange between Japan and the West. Oda Nobunaga was used European technology and firearms to conquer many other daimyo. His consolidation of power began what was known as the Azuchi Momoyama period, After the death of Nobunaga in 1582, his successor, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, unified the nation in the early 1590s and launched two unsuccessful invasions of Korea in 1592 and 1597. Tokugawa Ieyasu served as a regent for Hideyoshi's son Toyotomi Hideyori and his position to gain political and military support. When open war broke out, Ieyasu defeated rival clans in the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. He was appointed shogun by Emperor Go-Yoshi in 1603 and established the Tokugawa shogunate at Edo, modern Tokyo. The shogunate enacted measures including Buki Shohato as a code of conduct to control the autonomous daimyo, and in 1639 the isolationist Sakoku close country policy that spanned the 2.5 centuries of tenuous political unity known as the Edo period 1603 to 1868. Modern Japan's economic growth began in this period, resulting in roads and water transportation routes, as well as the financial instruments such as futures contracts, banking, and insurance of the Osaka rice brokers. The study of Western sciences, Rangaku, continued through the contact with the Dutch enclave in Nagasaki. The Edo period gave rise to Kokugaku, national studies, and the study of Japan by the Japanese. Modern era. The United States Navy sent Commodore Matthew C. Berry to force the opening of Japan to the outside world. Arriving at Tiragua with 4 black ships in July 1853, the Berry expedition resulted in the March 1854 Convention of Kanagawa. Subsequent similar treaties with the Western countries brought economic and political crises. The resignation of the shogun led to the Boshin War and the establishment of a centralized state, nominally unified under the emperor, the Meiji Restoration. Adopting Western political, judicial, and imperial institutions, the cabinet organized the Privy Council, introduced the Meiji Constitution, November 29, 1890, and assembled the Imperial Diet. During the Meiji period, 1868 to 1912, the Empire of Japan emerged as the most developed nation in Asia, and as an industrialized world power that pursued military conflict to expand its sphere of influence. After victories in the First Sino-Japanese War, 1894 to 1895, and Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, Japan gained control of Taiwan, Korea, and the southern half of Sakhalin. The Japanese population doubled from 35 million in 1873 to 70 million in 1935, with a significant shift to urbanization. The early 20th century saw a period of Taisho democracy, 1912 to 1926, overshadowed by increasing expansionism and militarization. World War I allowed Japan, which joined the side of the victorious Allies, to capture German possessions in the Pacific and in China. The 1920s saw a political shift towards statism, a period of lawlessness following the 1923 Great Tokyo earthquake. The passing of laws against political dissent and a series of attempted coups. The process accelerated during the 1930s, spawning several radical nationalist groups that shared hostility toward the liberal democracy and the dedication to expansion in Asia. In 1931, Japan invaded the occupied Manchuria following an international condemnation of the occupation. It reigned from the League of Nations 2 years later. Sorry, I can't read, I guess. It's supposed to be, it resigned from the League of Nations 2 years later. In 1936, Japan signed the Anti-Comintern Pact with Nazi Germany. In the 1940 Tripartite Pact made by one of the Axis powers. The Empire of Japan invaded other parts of China in 1937. Precipitating the Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937 to 1945. In 1940, the Empire invaded French Indochina, after which the United States placed an oil embargo on Japan. On December 7th to 8th, 1941, Japanese forces carried out surprise attacks on Pearl Harbor, as well as on British forces in Malaya, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Among others, beginning World War II in the Pacific. Throughout areas occupied by Japan during the war, numerous abuses were committed against local inhabitants, with many forced into sexual slavery. After Allied victories during the next of 4 years, which culminated in the Soviet invasion of Manchuria and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Japan agreed to an unconditional surrender. The war cost Japan its colonies and millions of lives. The Allies, led by the United States, repatriated millions of Japanese settlers from their former colonies and military camps throughout Asia, largely culminating in Japanese empire. Largely eliminating the Japanese Empire and its influence over the territories it conquered. The Allies convened in the International Military Tribunal prosecute Japanese leaders for war crimes. In 1947, Japan adopted a new constitution emphasizing liberal democratic processes. The Allied occupation ended with the Treaty of San Francisco in 1952. And Japan was granted membership in the United Nations in 1956. A period of record growth propelled Japan to become the second largest economy in the world. Wow. This ended in mid-1990s after the popping of an asset price bubble, beginning the lost decade. In 2011, Japan suffered one of the largest earthquakes in its recorded history, triggering the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster. Nuclear disaster on May 1st, 2019, the historic abdication of Emperor Akihito and his son Naruhito became emperor, beginning the Reiwa era. Excuse me one sec here. Just gonna get some more gum in my mouth. Geography. Japan comprises 14,125 islands extending along the Pacific coast of Asia. It stretches over 3,000 kilometers, 1,900 miles northeast and to southwest from the Sea of Okhotsk in the East China Sea. The country's 5 main islands from north to south are Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Okinawa. The Ryukyu Islands, which include Okinawa, are a chain to the south of Kyushu. The Nampo Islands are south and east of the main islands of Japan. Together, they are often known as the Japanese archipelago. And as of 2019, Japan's territory is 377,975.24 kilometers squared, 145,937.06 square miles. Japan has the 6th longest coastline in the world at 29,751 kilometers, 18,486 miles. Because of its far-flung outlying islands, Japan has the 8th largest exclusive economic zone in the world, covering 4,470,000 kilometers squared, 1,730,000 square miles. The Japanese archipelago is 67% forest and 14% agricultural. The primarily rugged and mountainous terrain is restricted for habitation. Thus, the habitable zones, mainly in the coastal areas, have very high population densities. Japan is the 40th most densely populated country. Honshu has the highest population density at 450 persons per kilometer squared, 1,200 square miles as of 2010, while Hokkaido has the lowest density. Excuse me. 1% persons per kilometer squared as of 2016. As of 2014, approximately 0.5% of Japan's total area is reclaimed land. Umatachi Lake Biwa is an ancient lake and the country's largest freshwater lake. Japan is substantially prone to earthquakes, tsunami, and volcanic eruptions because of its location along the Pacific Ring of Fire. It has the 17th highest natural disaster risk as measured in the 2016 World Risk Index. Japan has 111 active volcanoes. Destructive earthquakes, often resulting in tsunami, occurred several times each century. The 1923 Tokyo earthquake killed over 140,000 people. Wow. More recent major quakes are the 1995 Great Hanshin earthquake and the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, which triggered a large tsunami. The climate of Japan is predominantly temperate, but varies greatly from north to south. The northmost region, Hokkaido, has a humid continental climate with long, cold winters and very warm to cool summers. Precipitation is not heavy, but the islands usually develop deep snowbanks in winter. In the Sea of Japan region on Honshu's west coast, northwest winter winds bring heavy snowfall during winter. In the summer, the region sometimes experiences extremely hot temperatures because of the phone. The central highland has a typical inland humid continental climate with large temperature differences between the summer and winter. The mountains of the Chukoku and Shikoku regions shelter the sea to inland sea from the seasonal winds, bringing mild weather year-round. The Pacific Coast features a humid subtropical climate that experiences milder winters with occasional snowfall and hot, humid summers because of the southeast seasonal wind. The Ryukyu and Nanpo Islands have a subtropical climate with snowfall and hot, humid summers because of the southeast seasonal wind. The Ryukyu and Nanpo Islands have a subtropical climate with warm winters and hot summers. Precipitation is very heavy. Especially during the rainy season. The rainy season begins in early May in Okinawa, and the rain front gradually moves north. In late summer and early autumn, typhoons often bring heavy rain, according to the Environment Ministry. Heavy rainfall and increasing temperatures have caused problems in the agricultural industry and elsewhere. The highest temperature ever measured in Japan, 41.1 degrees Celsius, 106 degrees Fahrenheit, was recorded in July 23rd, 2018, and repeated on August 17th, 2020. Military. Japan is the second highest ranked Asian country in the 2022 Global Peace Index after Singapore. spent 1% of its total GDP on its defense budget in 2020 and maintained the 10th largest military budget in the world in 2022. The country's military, the Japan Self-Defense Forces, is restricted by Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which renounces Japan's right to declare war or use military force in international disputes. The military is governed by the Ministry of Defense and primarily consists of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, and the Japan Air Self-Defense Force. The deployment of troops to Iraq and Afghanistan marked the first overseas use of Japan's military since World War II. The government of Japan has been making changes to its security policy, which include the establishment of the National Security Council, the adoption of the National Security Strategy, and the development of the National Defense Program Guidelines. In May 2014, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Japan wanted to shed the passiveness it has maintained since the end of the World War II and to take more responsibility for regional security. In December 2022, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida further confirmed this trend, instructing the government to increase spending by 65% until 2027. Recent tensions, particularly with North Korea and China, have reignited the debate over the status of JSDF and its relation to Japanese society. Economy. Japan has the world's fourth largest economy by nominal GDP, after that of the United States, China, and Germany, and the fourth largest economy by PPP. Not sure what PPP means, but as of 2021, Japan's labor force is the world's eighth largest, consisting of over 68.6 million workers. As of 2022, Japan has a low unemployment rate of around 2.6%. Its poverty rate is the second highest among the G7 nations and exceeds 15.7% of the population. If we say 15.7%, that is. Japan has the highest ratio of public debt to GDP among advanced economies, with national debt estimated at 248% relative to GDP as of 2022. The Japanese yen is the world's third largest revenue currency after the US dollar and the euro. Oh, I didn't know that. Let me just see here. Okay, industry and services. I'm gonna skip ahead a bit because I'm running out of battery. Japan has a large industrial capacity and is home to some of the world's largest and most technologically advanced producers of motor vehicles, machine tools, steel and non-ferrous materials, ship, chemical substances, textiles, and processed foods. Japan's industrial sector makes up approximately 27.5% of its GDP. The country's manufacturing output is the third highest in the world as of 2019. Japan is the third largest automobile producer in the world as of 2002 and is home to Toyota, the world's largest automobile company. I didn't know it was the largest. I guess that's not too surprising though. I used to have a Toyota Corolla. By vehicle production, quantitatively, Japan was the world's largest exporter of cars in 2021, although it was overtaken by China in 2023. Let me just see here. Okay. Culture. Contemporary Japanese culture combines influences from Asia, Europe, and North America. Traditional Japanese arts include crafts such as ceramics, textiles, lacquerware, swords, and dolls. Performances of bunraku, kabuki, noa dance, and rakugo, and other practices. The tea ceremony, ikebana, martial arts, calligraphy, origami, onsen, geisha, and games. Japan has a developed system for the protection and promotion of both tangible and intangible cultural properties and national treasures. 22 sites have been inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, 18 of which are of cultural significance. Japan is considered a cultural superpower. Wow. Let me just see here. Art and architecture. The history of Japanese paintings exhibits a synthesis and competition between native Japanese aesthetics and imported ideas. The interaction between Japanese and European art has been significant. For example, ukiyo-e prints, which began to be exported in 19th century in the movement known as Japanism, has a significant influence on the development of modern art in the West, notably on post-impressionism. Let me just see here. Okay, so Japanese architecture is a combination of local and other influences. It has traditionally been typified by wooden or mud plaster structures elevated slightly off the ground with tiled or thatched roofs. The shrines of ice have been celebrated as the prototype of Japanese architecture. Traditional housing in many temple buildings see the use of tatami mats and sliding doors that break down the distinction between rooms and indoor and outdoor space. Since the 19th century, Japan has incorporated much of the Western modern architecture into construction and design. It was not until after World War II that Japanese architects made an impression on the international scene. Firstly, with the work of architects like Kenzo Tanji, and then with the movements like metabolism. Thank you for watching. Okay, bye.